Mr. Paniraja sir, with greatest reverence and highest admiration. Let us now welcome the man who does not need any introduction and known among all of us for his wisdom and knowledge. He is none other than our Honorable Principal Dr. J. Sukumar sir. I also extended my welcome to Kumar sir for his support. My heartfelt welcome to our resource person, Mr. Ashin Antony, Chief Technology Officer in Software Design and Delivery, and also consultant in Artificial Intelligence, Big Data, Mobile, and Cloud Computing. And my welcome to HODs and faculty members of SGC and various colleges, and also extended my gratitude to corporate personalities and students of Saradha Gangadharan College and other colleges. Welcome you once again. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Now I call upon Mrs. Roshnara Banu ma'am to introduce our resource person. Ma'am, please.
Thank you, Durga ma'am. Good evening to all dignified participants. It is a great pleasure for me to introduce our resource person, Mr. Ashin Antony, Chief Technology Officer, New Vento System Private Limited, who is here to elaborate on IT industry functionalities. Today, most of the students lack knowledge in this key area and they struggle in identifying their own area of interest in IT industry. Our speaker has done masters in information technology. He has spent more than 20 years of his career in serving a wide range of MNCs and an expert consultant in various technologies spanning from AI, big data to mobile and cloud computing. Today, we have Mr. Ashin Antony, who have accepted our invitation to share his knowledge and experience with the bubbling IT professionals. We are all very happy to welcome you, sir. I welcome you to take over the session, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mrs. Roshnara Banu. Hello, everybody. I extend my thanks to Sri Swaminathan, Chairman, Sri S. Paniraja, Vice Chairman, Dr. J. Kumar, Principal, and HOD, and Genoma. Thank you very much for this opportunity. I am very much overwhelmed that I have been given this opportunity to present. Let me do a sound check. Ma'am, is it audible? Am I clear?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
It's audible, sir.
Perfect. Okay. So without much ado, I would go into the session itself. I would recommend that whenever you have a question, please frame it and put it onto the chat so that maybe towards the end we can go over all your queries. The idea of this session, is to share my knowledge and my insight of what it would take a college student into a proper IT professional. Okay, so that being said, the background that I come from is something that might interest you. So the ma'am who just spoke, Roshnara ma'am, she is my college classmate. We studied in a small town, not too small. It's pretty reasonably good when big now. It's called Neyveli, and we did our bachelor's in computer science there together. Right, it was a long time back, about 23 years to 20 years back. So during that time, we had wonderful professors and HOD and a lot of good, insightful academia. We lacked two major powers that we have today, that you have today. One is, of course, the internet. We though add a little bit of internet, it was not as good as what you have today. And the other part that was lacking at that time is these kind of opportunities where the industry coming over and meeting academia. So that being said, let me quickly do a check and understand how many of you here would be comfortable with me talking only in English and how many would like to have the conversation in Tamil as well. Because I understand there could be some challenges with some people. Okay, I already see somebody saying only in English. I will keep to that. No problem. Okay, So let me also present my screen and start sharing my presentation. Okay, very good. Fine. Uh, Roshnara Banu, could you please confirm if my screen is visible?
Just a moment, sir.
Sure. Okay, in the meantime,
Yes, sir. We are able to see your screen, sir.
very good. Thank you. So, like I mentioned, right, so there are quite a few resources out there that would tell you what to learn, how to learn. Could
Sir,
others
we
please
have
go
the
on mute?
echo in your mic. Can you please mute the volume in your laptop, sir?
I'm on headphones, so there is high chance it is. Is it better now? Others could please go on mute. Yeah,
Yes,
I
sir.
couldn't hear it. Perfect. Thank you. Okay, so as I was telling, right, the idea behind this session, why I got so much excited about being able to present this here is that that portion that I lack, or some of us lack, where we could have had a knowledge of what happens in the industry before you come into the industry, would give you that additional push to understand and learn and be prepared what you need to know when you land in the or in an organization, an IT organization primarily. So that is the reason I have put together a few slides here. The agenda for this is to give an overview of what is IT, what is in IT for you, the different areas as in an IT organization, the processes, the technologies, domains, how to prepare for IT, and what would differentiate you from others, right? So that being said, we can go into the session. Like I mentioned, we can have a quick question answer session, maybe 45 minutes down the line. The sessions are 2 days. Today we will focus on this agenda. Tomorrow we will go into a little bit more of the interesting stuff, where you would be understanding a little bit more in detail of the application of each of the technology areas, which is a very important factor. The reason being, tomorrow when we go into each of it, when as a student somebody studies a technology, it is very difficult to map it. Sometimes that is why some of the subjects get very difficult for us. Like for instance, chemistry used to be a bit of a challenge when I studied. That's because I didn't know why I need to learn all that, all those chemical compounds and all that, right? So at that time, it would be a challenge for me most of the time, unless until my faculty had given me a particular reason how it would have helped. I might have kept it away from getting into my knowledge system. So that is the reason it's very important to connect the dots. Mainly, most of you being, uh, you know, going to go into an industry where you would be applying rather than researching most of the time. It is very important that you understand how and why you need to, get the technology connected with the application. Okay. So that being said, let us go into the systems today, into the presentation of today. So, what is IT? When you say what is IT, what is information technology, and what is that industry about? It is pretty easy to say what is not IT, or rather, to try and say what is not IT in today's terms, which would actually explain a lot. It will be more easy to cover up pretty soon, isn't it? So, I want to start off the session by asking you, like, in case, if you had an opportunity of using any of those day-to-day systems, even today, some of you might have maybe ordered, let's say, Zomato or Swiggy, right? What could have happened? The order would have taken you to some payment system like Paytm, which indirectly would have rerouted the uh, payment to a payment gateway like Visa or Amex or MasterCard, right? And then they internally go into your bank. They talk to your bank, direct your amount, and pay them to the beneficiary, in this case, Zomato, right? That is one part of it. On the other side of it, what could have happened? In my case, my Zomato order goes to the MyGate application that is used by my apartment security. My apartment security then validates if he has been given a pre-order approval and then approves whether the Zomato valet has to enter the premises or not, enter the apartment or not, right? In the same time, the bank, having been notified of the deduction, messages me or WhatsApp me my update on WhatsApp or on a SMS. Also, I get a mail saying that there is an update in the account, right? So these are some very visible activities that happen. And whenever somebody talks of IT, a non-IT or non-trained IT mind looks at these apps and says, okay, these apps are there, these systems and people behind them are the functionaries of an IT system. But what happens apart from this of course is IT, and this is a major portion. But apart from this, there is a lot more. Like for instance, there is an ERP system. A few weeks back, you would have you had a session in your college where ERP was explained in detail by one of your visiting faculties. And then there are systems like content management systems, CMS, CRMs, customer relationship management systems, HRMS, human resource management systems, and business intelligence management systems. Even there are processes that get automated through business process management systems. So there are quite a few systems, all belonging to the IT cadre, all belonging to software, and internally utilizing a lot of hardware and network capabilities that enable these activities. These make the system functioning in a smooth fashion, getting what you got. That's not just about having got a simple order of food delivered, right? All that happens behind the scenes is pretty much in detail. And what I spoke here is maybe 15 to 20 percentage, or maybe let's say being a little bit more optimistic, 40 percentage of the story. There are a lot more systems involved making this possible to reach or act, in a normal fashion in a day to day. So that actually translates that there are a lot of opportunities out there, and these opportunities would come to you as a student, as a potential IT candidate, if you start understanding them in a little bit of detail. As of now, what would happen is when you look at it from a very broader perspective, a CMS, a CRM, and an ERP might sound alien or complex. But once you start understanding the functionality behind it, the purpose behind it, that is what makes it easy for you to be prepared with those knowledges. I wanted to emphasize one more factor, right? When I am here, I am not just sharing my knowledge. I am actually preparing you for the industry so that tomorrow, me as an IT professional or as an organizational, like in my delivery organization, I need to go and find good resources. It isn't very easy. Like for instance, there was a walk-in interview we conducted about a few months back, like 6-7 months back. And apart, despite we had about 80 participants working into the office that day, we could only shortlist 2 or 3 good professionals. Students, of course, having had experience and learning from even external institutions. It was not easy for me to find somebody who is readily available to work. Okay, again, I'm not criticizing anything here. These people who came there, they had done their education, they know programming, they know what it is about the processes. But when they have to connect, they lack that extra push, extra connect that could have helped them, right, to land a job on that particular day. So, when that same situation happened to you in a matter of a year or two, I would like to have you prepared to that level. I'm not going to give you a coaching here. I'm going to just touch upon areas and processes that would enable you to get to that point where, apart from your education, that with the good guidance of your professors and faculties and non-teaching staff you get in your colleges, you should also be prepared to face the industry in all those other areas. Okay, so that is the purpose of this session. Now, what is IT for you? Like once you are done with your education, once you are completed what you need to learn, where are you now? You are going to be a job seeker, or you can do a startup of a company. You can go start a company, right? It isn't exaggeration. There are a lot of people who start up an organization right after education. But I have seen some successful cases where the people involved have gone through to uh, learn being not going into get an experience in an already existing IT company for 2 or 3 years, understand how it works, and then step out and start their own company. One friend of mine nearby here did it a few years back. He did it around the year 2014, and now he's running a very successful business of his own in the IT company, in an IT company, right? So that is surely a path. However, most of the times, you generally join a IT company. Now there are two parts to the IT itself, right? One is a full-fledged IT organization, full-fledged IT company where we develop software in and out. Or then there is an IT wing of a non-IT company. We'll go into it. We'll see an example of what each of this encompasses, right? But generally, I would focus more today and tomorrow on the areas where IT company or IT software development is related to. So the reason being, let us see an IT organization chart here, right? When you see an IT organization chart, what you see here is just a sample. Let me zoom in so that you will be able to get a good idea of what is out here. So if you see on the topmost, you see the CXOs. Now, we call these top range of people the roles or the positions as CXOs, because if you replace the middle letters with an X, all these people will be in the same range. The CEO, Chief Executive Officer, Chief Delivery Officer, the Chief Technology Officer, the Chief Operating, Finance, and Marketing Officers are all called CXOs because they are in the executive rank. They have the ownership of being producing money for their organization using the finances provided by the head of the organization, and they deliver in an IT organization perspective, they ensure the delivery and functioning of an organization smoothly, right? That being said, now let us go a little bit into the two main areas that software professionals primarily need to understand and prepare. So what you see here, right, is the first one is the chief delivery officers organization. So the delivery organization, as we call it, is a very key functional area where a lot of software development happens. IT services and managed services alongside the project management office is something that makes sure that the software delivery happens. So when I say software delivery, it is about requirement gathering, analysis, design, development, quality assurance, deployment, right? And all that. And then as after deployment of a new software, then managing it on a day-to-day basis. Let's take a step back, right? Let's say the same example that we saw earlier. And again, all these examples are based on my, assumption of the fact that these processes might be followed by some of the organizations. So when I take Zomato, for example, do not literally believe that Zomato uses the exact same technologies, but should be pretty similar, and the processes that we follow should be very close to what I am narrating here, right? So what would happen is, if Zomato would be following a structure of this sort, the chief delivery officer of Zomato would be responsible for a team that comprises the development, which should comprise of junior, senior developers, business analysts, quality assurance analysts, tech leaders, right? That and the architects who form part of developing the software. There would be managers who manage the processes. And when it comes to managing, it means not literally hands-on software development, but they ensure that what is being promised is delivered, right? So they are that ownership. And then the managed services. Once this software go into production, there are shift engineers who sit, monitor, make sure that all the operations are done. Database administrators who validate and make sure databases are up and running. The operations lead who monitor and overview the teams that do this, all come under the managed services portion. Again, these definitions are drastically changing these days. There are there are technology areas and processes like DevOps and NoOps that ensure that a very flat organization with a lean and fast means of delivery is possible through just developers, maybe senior developers, putting in all that is required to make sure after the code is done, the end product is automatically deployed and also monitored. So Now, there is a very important factor today where DevOps and NoOps are playing. If I were you, and if I had that experience that I had, right now before 20 years, and I was attending such a session, I would surely be taking notes, right? In this case, I put together this, so I do not. But if I were you, I would highly recommend take notes of these keywords that you would listen to. I would also collate a few of the key takeaways for the day at the end of the session. But please do note down DevOps, 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 NoOps, NoOps, NoOps. All this are something that you can go and look up and understand in detail. In your process of converting from a pupa to a butterfly, a student to a IT professional, it is going to be very useful. Okay, so next, let us look at a typical, CT organization, a technology organization where generally R&D and products are the primary, scope of uh, focus in a CT organization, where there would be architects and there would be engineers. Like I mentioned earlier, mostly a lean and mean team. They create these products and they make sure that these products are pushed onto IT services or managed services team for further implementation into projects. Okay, these these areas, these roles, some of them are very much likely to change. Like for instance, in my organization, at being a smaller sized organization, I play the role of delivery as well. So though called a CTO, I also ensure that the delivery of the organization is run right. Apart from that, what happens are other roles like chief operating officers, chief finance officers, and chief marketing officers. These are also key roles. Each of them, making sure that the operations, the finances, and the marketing of the software is done in a very effective way. So, sometimes like what happens is, and this is a very common, scenario where when I ask a student or even myself, along with my classmates, when we used to discuss, a lot of them wanted to always be, into maybe computer graphics. Like for instance, I want to be a graphic designer. I like Photoshop. I like animation. I like game programming. Keeping aside game programming for a minute, there's animation and photoshopping. All that kind of people land up in jobs uh, supporting. Not all, most of the organizational strength in an IT organization goes into graphic designers who produce marketing content. They also would be necessary when it comes to development, where some of the delivery aspects would be media content, right? The websites needs images, text, which should be developed by content writers and graphic designers. But primary focus that they do is if to produce output for the marketing and the sales departments. So just to clarify, the BDM here stands for the business development managers who go in, get customers, make sure the prospects turn into customers and remain happy through the process. So these are at a very high level an organizational structure for a general IT company, right? So now going back to the organization chart, why this is important that you know what is here is because generally when you step into an organization, you might step in at a lower level, but the moment you know what you have in front of you, when you have the visibility, it is very much easy for you to climb the ladder, right? Though it is really not of great essence that you need to possess a title, your growth is very much important in any organization. What I would have done as a junior developer, I do multiple fold when I reach an architect level, and vice versa, right? I love to develop softwares. That is why I am here today, and that is what has made me what I am. Similarly, if you have that go, if you love to do software development, what more fun and interesting it would be once you know how to create the softwares, right? Not just at one at a time. Being an architect or a CT or a CDO, I can develop multiple programs with the help of a bigger team. So that should be your aspiration if you are going to work for an IT organization. Generally, there are people who are very much interested in becoming managers and going into the PMO. There are others who want to go into and becoming a business analyst. All that is very fine as well, right? As far as you understand what your goal is and how to reach there, you get to go there very sooner. Okay, so that is about an IT organization. Let me take a quick pause and verify if my video, audio, all those are very well. Mrs. Roshnara Banu, could you please confirm if all is fine?
Yes, sir, it's going on well,
Thank you
sir.
very
So one more favor, can you please pin your presentation, sir?
Pardon me?
Can you pin your presentation?
Okay. You want me to share this file with you?
It's okay, sir. Thank you, sir. You carry on, sir. It's okay, sir. Now
Okay.
it's right, sir.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I believe it is pinned. Like I have only one screen. Okay. Okay. Fine. So let me continue. So why I have been emphasizing on this, like I mentioned, is about giving a perspective of what is out there and what you understand is very important as students, as aspirants into the IT industry. Now let us go into and see a subset of this, right, on a non-IT organization, like a non-IT company. There are quite a few opportunities out there in non-IT companies as well. For example, there are any organization which is sizable and has any internet presence would have an IT wing for in that non-IT organization. Let's say, for instance, there are organizations like P&G, Procter and Gamble, for instance, which has a very sizable IT presence. They have to market their products. They have to do research on their products, marketing research. They have to ensure that their systems, like I mentioned earlier, the ERPs and the CRMs and CMSs has to function properly, right? So that is the reason it is very important that understand that there are software and non-software companies where opportunities are wholesome. But still in the current trend, there are much more opportunities for a computer science graduate or an engineer in information technology or BTech to get into an IT organization than a non-IT organization. But once you get it, then you would find opportunities. You can step out into a non-IT organization where IT is available. Like for instance, a CIO generally is more prominent as a information or IT leader in a non-IT company where they would have infrastructure. Obviously, a lot of infrastructure related activities, and the service engineers report to them. There will be project managers who make sure project management happens. And what happens there, is like for instance, let me quickly go into the next slide and show you a sample organization structure. This is an actual organizational structure from PNG from 18 years back. I just could find this out there. As you see here, the CEO has a three presidents, reporting him, and there are quite a few others who also are reporting to him. But at a very high level, these primary presidents who report to him are focused on the main product out there. Let me magnify this so that you will be able to see this a little bit more better, right? So what happens here is for fabric and home care of P&G, there is a president, Bob. Bruce takes care of beauty and health care. The market development is taken care of by Kerry, and pet care is taken care of by Jeff, and home care is taken care of by Gojin. So all these people, all these top three, if you look at, are primarily focused into the main products of that organization because it is a non-IT organization. Fabric, home care, beauty, all these are their primary focus. Now, if you take a step back and look at where does IT fall in as a primary, you would notice that, yeah, right. The CIO, Steve David, is down there. Though he reports to the CEO, no, still the emphasize that this organization chart provides for an information technology area is relatively small. I'm pretty sure this would have changed much drastically over the last 18 years, and the CIO would be playing a much bigger role and would have got much bigger emphasis. But still, the main production opportunity lies with the products that actually provide the biggest of profit and loss to the organization, right? So that being said, we'll move on. I believe I have made enough emphasis on the organizational structure perspective. Let's quickly touch on the IT processes. There are multiple processes, and the processes are areas that for an academia is the most boring subject, if I would call it out there. I'm pretty sure your faculties would be doing a great deal to try to make it interesting. But still, when it comes to a technologist, when it comes to a software engineer or a programmer, following processes are always a bit of a pain, because the interesting part is about writing code, mostly if you have that thing for coding, right? So when it comes to having to follow processes, it is always a bit of a challenge and a pushback. But these processes are those that actually makes writing code most effective, most efficient. Without them, you would still be in the older age. Imagine if you look at it from a example perspective, if each and everyone had always started off from scratch without having learned, or rather going through the process of knowledge management, right? If you had no schools out there to manage the process of knowledge management, for instance, we would all be in the Stone Age still. We would have started doing research of our own and inventing the wheel. If we are best knowledgeable out there, but because we have the processes of documenting and sharing this information, today we have grown as a much better race, much better civilization. Similarly, in any organization, in IT processes as well, it is important that people follow processes to make the software development, quality assurance, and all other areas more mature, right? So that being said, we'll quickly look at one such process in an engineering perspective. And please do note down agile, as a keyword if you have not yet been had the opportunity to go deep into. What is agile, or what is agility? Is the capacity to make yourself change friendly. So earlier, like I'm talking about at least 20 years back, when a software development used to start, there used to be a phase of and depending upon the size of the software and the product that is being developed, there used to be a time that it used to take for us to design. So 2 to 3 months of heavy knowledge brainstorming went in. People got into calls, got into meeting rooms, sat there, documented all the requirements, and then at the end of it, they used to come with a design document, an high-level design document, a low-level design document, and then starts the actual development. Then starts all the activities that actually matters. So and then that would be going on for the next 6 to 8 months, again, based on the system size that you're developing, right? At last, after all this done, the release happens. We put it into production. They, of course, test it, make sure it is ready, and based on what they had gathered as a requirement, if it is out there, they put it out there. So what used to happen is that the time to delivery from the time to ideation was huge, because the process or the speed at which the progression in technology was slow. It was okay. The technologies didn't change drastically, but today, between 2 to 3 months, a major version of release comes from most of the technologies. That means that if you are stuck up with one technology for a period, you are outdated by the time a software delivery happens. So that is the reason why the process of being agile, an iterative process of delivering something as quick as possible, is very important, right? Again, I'm sure I know some of you would be yarning at it. We will go into not too much details here, but just understand that compared to the 8 9 months of being able to see something, except for the first few sprints, eventually what happens is almost every other week there would be releases in a iterative process that makes sure that the development is very quick, the delivery is even quicker. So features come out sooner. Imagine Swiggy needs to, or Zomato needs to develop a COVID tracking system, or capturing the temperature of the person who delivers food. And if they are going to take 6 months to develop something and release, would it be feasible? By the time maybe a vaccine would have come out, right? So that is the reason it is very important that they are able to bring it out in a matter of 2 to 4 weeks, worst case. So that is where these iterative processes become very efficient. Okay, so quickly moving on, there is another process called a quality assurance, which is very much important as development itself. What you see here is a TMMI, or capability maturity model for quality assurance, where there are different levels an organization or even a software development process can reach based on where they are. Like basic QA activities being followed, maybe we call it an initial. But as they grow up, once they have an established process and once they have proper standards to follow for documenting, for implementing each of these processes, this development model takes the quality assurance process up to a very optimized level where many of these activities are mostly automated and make sure that the delivery is faultless. You cannot sometimes afford to create bugs in such systems that could cost people from switching from your service to another. So that is a very important purpose why you need to make sure delivery happens with very high quality, right? So these process maturity models take software development from where they are to where it needs to be. Again, I will keep it to this and move on because these are something that you would surely have come upon across in your academia. But make sure that I understood and appreciate the importance of this. It's very important you understand and try and grasp why you need to focus on these areas. Managed services again is about taking a software and making it go production, and also making sure that once it is in production, it runs smooth. So there are various areas like service desk, remote support, on-site support. There are self-service portals. Remember those two topics that I mentioned, DevOps and Ops may play a major role here as well. It's about having an incident, the process that you need to have in place so that you can create an incident and get it resolved. Problem management, release management, all this are part of those processes that ensure a system, an IT system in this context, runs smooth, right? Okay, so we'll quickly touch upon some of the technology areas. This is more like an icebreaker because we have not been talking technology in an IT presentation, right? I I am not going to cover the depth and breadth of all the technologies, and which is not the focus here. But what I would like to call out, and from my limited experience, I would like to call out a few technology areas that has a lot of potential in these days, and I would tell you, in a few slides on how you can, be the judge of yourself to understand which track you have to choose. Right? We'll go to there in a short while. But before that, just calling out the ABCDs of some of the most common technology areas. Artificial intelligence. These days, almost everybody would have experienced, artificial intelligence in some way or the other. And that I have clubbed with data because data ensures that artificial intelligence is possible. The absence of data would be a biggest challenge or a hindrance in any system becoming intelligent in any way, artificial or natural, right? So under it, we have areas like machine learning, big data, data warehousing. All those areas come under data and artificial intelligence. The business process management area, like for instance, today, let's say I am going to an organization. This actually happened at about 10 years back or 8 years back. We went to a post office, and during that time, they had put in softwares into post offices, before which they did not have this process. So, and we had to book a speed post. It was taking a lot of time for the postman or the officer in the post office to input the details into the computer. And what he was saying to us is that it used to be much faster when we didn't have computers, right? Though ironically, it sounds, it still was true because a person who used to be able to write down something and quickly, stamp a seal and give you the receipt had to now sit in and work on a computer that he was not very comfortable with. So, obviously, there is a transition from manual to an automated process. But in that process, we had to go through a dip where people had to use not greatly efficient means of inputting and outputting. Right? That was one scenario that I had faced that day there. which today, if I look back, I would have enabled that postman to write down in his own process, just scan the package or put it against a camera where that process, a robotic process automation component could have kicked in, grasped the address and the details, and automatically converted them onto what it needs to go into. There are different aspects to the evolution in this process. For instance, at those times, or rather, like everybody says, in 1947, right? There used to be limited computing capabilities. A mobile phone became smart much around that time, right? Because the capabilities started, the computing capabilities started to improve drastically uh, by that time, right? So though it was have been still feasible, possible, it would have not been feasible to automate a post office to that level at that time. Okay, so this is something that you need to watch out for, and see how and how very well you can implement or educate yourself to understand the progression that happens in the industry. Then it comes to the cloud services. Everybody pretty much has used some service or the other indirectly. Like you have your drive where you upload your photos, your Google Drive, for instance. You click your photo, and overnight, once you connect to the Wi-Fi, this gets backed up. Go and sit in the cloud. There are quite a few services and cloud related activities are out there, and it's a ocean. Yeah, and I'm pretty sure anybody who goes into any other area still need to know and understand what cloud has to offer into each of these areas, right? Like I had mentioned, DevOps again is, though a factor that could apply across. It's something that cloud services are focusing to get onto, because infrastructure and the compute capabilities are a core feature that cloud emphasizes on. Okay, and at last, but surely not the least, the bigger area of opportunity is the digital technologies. The digital technologies, as I call it, comprises of everything other than this, if you want to: mobile, web, social media, IoT, blockchain, cyber security, all of them that which doesn't fall into this, I would like to call them digital technologies, for the sake of calling it, right? So these are areas where there is a lot more improvement, lot more opportunities coming up. Uh, so, IoT, blockchain, are some of the areas that are still not, of common use. There are a lot of organizations emphasizing on it. There are a lot of smart cities being built on IoT technologies today, even in India, right? Blockchain, I would say, was much more niche, and it would need a much more detailed session. I believe one of your previous sessions had a little bit of overview into blockchain, but then blockchain emphasizes, we can look at a little bit more in detail tomorrow. And how to and where to choose and implement blockchain is something that we are still in the process of getting mature at. Then there are other areas like cyber security that are still available, limitedly though, for lack of the need to have multiple cyber security professionals within an IT organization, but still they are of very core essence and very well paying too. But the core, the rice, I would say, in a meal, the maximum quantity that is out there goes into application development on mobile, web, social, and to softwares of use across enterprises like CRM, CMS, ERPs, all that consume the maximum of us, the humans' effort. This changes drastically because of the way software as a service models come out, where companies like, for instance, Zoho, ZOHO, they create ERP solutions and automate most of that is required out there that an IT professional would have needed, in a combination of putting them onto the cloud and making it available for consumption directly by the business user, right? So imagine, going back a few slides, in this IT or non-IT organization, if all the services that are needed for the actual, like in this case, if the fabric and home care could have been taken care, of themselves by just utilizing a software as a service, they would have not needed a CIO, or they would have not needed a CIO organization or a CTO organization to build anything for them, because some software organization already built that service out there. So that is that one challenge that you would be facing in terms of a non-IT organization. So that's something that you can watch out for, right? Now coming back to this area, I would again take a small pause. We are like almost more than half the way through. Let me take a quick pause and see if we are doing well out there. Mrs. Roshna Rabanu, could you please
Yes, sir.
confirm we are still online and doing fine?
Yes, sir. We are going
Okay,
on good.
thank you, ma'am.
Thanks. Thanks.
Okay, so getting back to the discussion, let us go on and see a little bit on the non-technical aspects of information technology. And this is something that uh, as from a college or from an academia perspective, it is very tough to understand where our software development gets implemented, right? So what happens out there is not that you just write some code, right? You write something that enables an industry. There are quite a few industries that are called out, but looking at from a broader perspective, right? Every industry today utilizes information technology as software, as hardware, most of the time. And in software, their primary area is sometimes being automated and brought in into the information technology area. So almost every domain contains information technology. So it might be even easier to find out which doesn't, or it will be easy to count out domains that where maybe there is not much of an automation today, or if I doubt if there is some like that, right? For instance, banking, financial services, and insurance, we call it BFSI for short. It's all that is related to money most of the time. So these is a very major domain where a lot of software and development goes into action. That's because on a day-to-day basis, banking is a very imperative thing. If you remember that first graph that I had put out there, everything at the end of the day goes into a bank where money gets transferred from one account to another. So BFSI is a very niche industry. Along with it, when insurance is clubbed, it becomes a very powerful domain that utilizes the maximum of IT. Then comes retail and fast-moving consumer goods, FMCG. Hospitality, that's a niche area. And for instance, one of the major hotel chains, you can assume, like for instance, Marriott, from one of my previous organizations. The organization used to implement a lot of such automation capabilities that a guest who lands in a five-star hotel of that hospitality chain can always go into a room where it is IoT enabled, that it remembers the favorite settings of that guest. Imagine that guest is comfortable with 27 degrees Celsius at their temperature within the room, right? And they would like to have the lights dim to 50% rather than being too bright or too low light. So all those settings they can do it, and when they return to the hotel or come to another hotel of the same network in any other city in the world, the IoT enabled systems that are linked to this database that remembers their settings make sure that the person walks into a very familiar room because it is able to match up what he had left as a setting out there, right? Imagine that is the level of automation and that sort of industry implementation that IT gives into an hospitality industry where it would have not even been to our fancy a decade back, right? It would have been somebody's favorite dream that they could have this implemented, and today it is totally feasible. Okay, like that, almost every industry where you can, think of, you can implement IT, in any fancy ways. So, though, like I mentioned, right, it could be a fancy activity today, but tomorrow it becomes essential. Earlier, how many of us, again, talking about our generation, when television started, a remote control might have been a very fancy item, but today, without a remote, almost no television sets gets operated today, right? So, similarly, fancy technology out there becomes a essential eventually. So, the more sooner you identify, the more sooner you adapt yourself, to cater to that particular domain, to the cater to that and understand and opportunity, convert that opportunity into a means of your survival is something very important in any industry today. So next time, I hope when you visit a place or when you look at any particular process, try and see, try and find out how information technology might be playing a role there. Without and imagine when you travel, what are the aspects that's happening in telecom. Imagine what all happens out there when you place a call or when you send a message. It's going to be very important that as an IT professional, and you visualize what happens, right? Okay. Now, look at this, right? What happens here is that I am going to look up and see worldwide in terms of IoT as a search term, what has happened. From 2004, up till recently, from 2014 to 2020, there has been an uptick in the trend of IoT. Similarly, for machine learning, the very similar trend exists today. What you see here as a field of study, machine learn has progressed or is being improved. Like, if you look at the trend, it is going up, above, right? So that means, if you're not yet there, you should be investing your time, material, and if you are an entrepreneurial mindset, maybe your money too, onto a field that has a uptick. So the key takeaway here is that, you understand that trends in Google could help evaluate what you need to prepare for, where you need to prepare for. Like, when you prepare for IT, it is important that you take an interesting area, but it is also important that you take an area which is going to be of, use when you have studied and come out. By the time you come out, if it is already out of trend, what use because of it that if you study that you are not able to get a job or implement it in a way that you are, successful as an entrepreneur. So this Google Trend solution, trends.google.com, you can visit and at any time do a check of what a trend happens. As a search, as a field of study, um, across the world, or even in particular country. Like for instance, you can choose India and see what happens with machine learning. If I were you, I would go and choose what are the machine learning courses to study. What is the trend in terms of machine learning courses? Is it in the rise or is it already done, etc. Right? Okay. So that being said, very similarly, like I had mentioned earlier, computer graphics is something of a fancy for anybody who finishes a course because there is a graphics paper out there and it is interesting to learn, right? But if you look at it over the last 15, 20 years, it has actually gone down, right, as a trend. Not because it is not being used, but it has transformed from being a niche area to an essential or a less than visible area, right? There is computer graphics everywhere. So if you're going to focus your energy into a area where you're going to learn a lot of graphics and computer animation, it's possible that you are out there unless until you need you have a specialization in terms of something that nobody else can provide that you can. So that's one area that you need to, if you're going to prepare, please look at Google Trends. It's going to really be of a great essence to you to help identify the right technology choices. Now the next one, when we talk of trends, you should also go and look up something called Gartner. Now, what Gartner is an organization that does a lot of research. It does comparisons. It evaluates a lot of organizations, technologies, and whatnot. In this example, this figure is an example of a magic quadrant for cloud AI development services, right? As an AI developer or as a cloud AI developer, this calls out those companies out there that specializes in cloud AI. And this quadrant, these four areas that are out here, calls out who are the challengers that are out there, who are the leaders. Like in this case, you see all those cloud providers are already leaders in the cloud AI developer services. Then there are visionaries who are software companies that are building softwares which are not at a leader, but their uh, placement in this quadrant means that they are soon to be a leader because of the way they are looking at those technology areas. And then there are some niche players who are not very widely acclaimed as a leader, but their softwares utilize cloud AI in a way that is very specific to their domain and the area of expertise, like in this case, SAP and Salesforce. SAP HANA has a lot of cloud AI technology for a developer. An HANA specialist developer could toil a huge sum of money if they know to do what they can with a SAP HANA implementation, right? And this is possible because this chart is possible because Gartner put together a lot of analysis into and gathered all the information and evaluated these organizations, right? Doesn't mean that these are the only organizations out there, but they have caught the attention of Gartner, and an organization like that evaluating them gives us as a aspirant and as a student that knowledge that I need to be focusing on today's trend. I need to focus on the current leaders, and in the same time, I should also be focusing on those players that are which are going to be leaders, current visionaries, right? So call out for Gartner. Please note down, look up, and this is just one quadrant, right? There are quadrants for each and every area of technology out there, for companies, for software technologies, all that. So please be aware and use this as a powerful tool. Now, the next one is something that I personally recommend a lot of people, a lot of students out there. You listen to a lot of music, which is very good. You listen to songs, to radio. These are available on the air, right? And with the amount of internet accessible today, podcast is something that you should not miss out. A podcast is more like a radio station, but it is available online, and you can listen to those episodes that are created and are made available. More importantly, you can go and choose which area you need to. Like, for example, I like machine learning, or even in specific, I like deep learning, for instance. I can go and search for a deep learning radio session or podcast that is out there. There are many out there. And I can listen to experts in the IT industry who have implemented or who have analyzed or researched deep learning talk about it, of how they implemented it, what are the applications they are using it for. It's a wonderful source of knowledge. Now, because you are a generation where apps are required, podcast softwares like Google Podcasts are a very important source of such podcasts. You just have to go install it, and most of it, or most all of the softwares that I'm talking about here, the apps that I'm talking about there, are available for free, except that you need to put in the data that is required to get this information. And it is most of the time there are a lot of audio podcasts which doesn't consume too much data. A 50 MB file can play an 1 hour audio podcast. There are some that are 10-minute podcasts that you can listen to. Like, I would highly recommend, if I were you and if I had the knowledge that I have today, I would have started listening to podcasts 20 years back, provided those were available at those times, right? So please note down podcast. It's a very important source of knowledge that would help you know what is done out there using those technologies that you're learning today. Next, a profile, like a Facebook profile, like a Instagram profile, or any other app profile. It's very important that you have a LinkedIn profile. LinkedIn, again, is another app, another website, another social media out there for professionals, not just IT professionals, for any professional. But the sooner you land out there, you create a presence for you in this particular domain, in this particular industry. Like, for instance, if I would be able to go in and look up a person online and see what your interests are, I would have to ask lesser questions in your interview when you turn up for an IT job. I can go and see there, oh, okay, Aaron has actually posted about a particular technology, so he should be interested in it. Or he is adverse about, he has posted something against the activity that is very similar to that we follow here, so he may not be a fit. Such kind of visibility into your professional social life can be created much before you actually enter an IT industry. So Please set up a LinkedIn profile for yourself. First, look at the do's and don'ts that are needed to be there. This is not another Facebook. Do not share, wonderful videos or images, but find that you should build a professional profile for you. So please do look out and create a good LinkedIn profile. You can follow people there. You can, like Twitter for instance, you can go create posts, you can follow those people, you can connect with them, you can connect with your professors. So tomorrow what would happen, when I submit a recommendation for an for my future studies, I'm going to send out my request for, let's say, University of California. I need for a master's degree. I'm already linked to my professor, and the professor can share a recommendation for me online on LinkedIn. So the college doesn't even have to ask for a letter of recommendation. No LOR is requested; they automatically approve. Right? That is how effective a LinkedIn profile can be. If you create and use it properly. So LinkedIn is something that, if I were you, would note down, and right after the meeting, not now. Some of you already started installing the app, which is fine. Please hold on, and at the end of the meeting, please go and create a profile for yourself. Next, as important as it is, a lot of misunderstanding is out there, thinking that English is not as important as it is, which is a very wrong notion, right? Very common platform that connects you with a customer, a colleague, and a job producer, a job organization is your language, and in this case, it is English. And it is not just that if you know English well, you are good. But if you do not know English well, I doubt if you are good at other areas, because even though there are exceptionally quite a few people who can learn, a programming language much better than English, I would, doubt the intent that their interest in programming languages could have much been utilized in a similar fashion to learn uh, human language, English. So please, focus your knowledge like 10-15 minutes. There are apps out there, like for instance, Duolingo is an app, right, which has a lot of gamification, which enables you to learn different languages, including English, right? The idea is that it uses interesting ways of utilizing 5 to 10 minutes of your time in a daily fashion, and provides you with interesting tips and tricks to understand and remember and recollect and utilize language techniques. So this is something that I recommend to everybody. It's not necessary that you need to use such a software, but you can go out there, listen to, for instance, the next part, as a communication improvement aspect. You can implement, you can start listening to books. Like for instance, Blinkist is a software that, as you see here, in around the 15 minutes of time, gives you the entire book as as an audio or a readable format. They create something called a blink, which actually captures a very important portion of that book. Some 5 to 10 blinks out there, and you are knowledgeable of what the book talks to you about. These are not about fictional books. It's always about non-fictional books, self-improvement, real world events, history, geography, medicine, all that out there have been translated into blinks, and this blink is a wonderful software. There are other similar softwares like Blinks, but I try to listen to books. In 15 minutes, if you can listen to a book, why wouldn't you not do it every day, right? Setting aside 1 hour, listening 5-10 minutes, or maybe half an hour to a podcast, 15 minutes for Blinkist and 10-15 minutes for communication improvement is something that you're going to invest very importantly. That would drastically transform your professional life. Okay. Last, not last, but not the least, coding. You have to improve your coding. If you are not interested in coding, do not try to go to an IT industry, right? Because coding is very important. And when I say coding, it's about software coding. But if you are lazy, if it doesn't really click there, and for some reason you are already taken software or computer programming as your field, you can make it possible for you to understand. Go to code.org, code.org, code.org. This is a wonderful way of converting your graphical experience into programming knowledge. For instance, if you look at this, right, this is a method. It's a ninth lesson where they are teaching you how to use a loop to in order to automate something. My 8-year-old son is able to learn programming through this visual programming method, right? It's always good to start early, and though this is about programming, it is fun, and that is the reason a lot of kids today out there are learning programming. So if you are not good at coding, or if you do not understand programming logic and technique, PLT as we call it, you are not going to be landing a software engineer job. So better inculcate that habit. Start right away. Go into code.org. You don't have to start at the base. There are multiple levels. For LKG out to school and then college and to IT professionals to understand and implement various concepts using the various techniques out there. Right? Okay. So that's one part of it. Let me quickly. Pardon me.
We are not able to hear your voice for a few seconds.
Is it better now?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Did you miss much, or was it just the code.org part?
In code.org part,
Oh,
just
okay.
few words, not much information. We
Okay.
are able to follow the information, but then and there the voice was getting break.
Okay. I hope it is better now, right?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay. So yeah, just visit code.org. Even if you think you are really good at it, what to lose by just knowing what is out there. So go look up at code.org and start looking at it. If you look at it here, right, it is available for you both as a teacher and a student. If there are some professors out there who want to make it easy for their students, they can design tutorials. They can design tests out there for their students. So please go on to code.org and have fun. Full stack, that is something that you should be aware. Who doesn't like burger? Some may not, but that's fine. This burger is out there for all IT industry professionals, right? A full stack is basically a term that is used to refer to technology composition that enables anybody. Like for instance, if I call myself a full stack engineer, that actually means that I can develop a software with my knowledge in the various areas, the various stacks of software, right? Right from the bottom where it is infrastructure, Windows, Linux, AWS cloud, all those that can host as a host hardware, on top of which I can write some backend, some databases, some APIs, and then the front end programming methods out there. Any of these technologies, and again, it doesn't have to be these. Very similar technologies that are out there. Many personal web applications, React, all that front end, interacting with the backend through REST APIs, through SOAP API, through WebSockets and different other methods. And then they connect with the databases. There are backend coding languages available out there. All these areas, and it doesn't mean that you need to know all of them. Like if you're pretty good in, let's say, AngularJS, and if you're not, fine. If you're good at React.js, and React.js is one that is pretty much prevalent today. If you're very good at React.js, you can tick off one area in your full stack journey. Then REST API development. That is fine, good enough. You don't need to know SOAP. Then in the cheese layer, let us say SQL Server or MySQL, for instance, right? You know MySQL pretty good, tick it off. Next, if you know Python, very good. Or if you know Node.js or C Sharp or any one of them, not all, any one of this area, right? And then on the cloud, like I had mentioned earlier, if you know AWS or Azure or Google, good enough, right? You become a full stack engineer. So on each of these areas, try and focus, try and understand what it is out there. You become a full stack developer. Okay, that's all from the how to prepare. So these are the key takeaways that you see out there, right? You should be able to go out there and gather information, prepare yourself, know what needs to be done to become an IT professional. If you come ready with all this, No organization can say no to you, right? You know to code, you have a profile, you are good in communication, you know what the trend is, and because of which you have chosen the right technology area for you to expertise on, and you have a full stack knowledge. Who would say no to you, right? That's it. Isn't that enough for a day?
Yes, sir. Thank you very much for a very, very, very valuable presentation, sir. It's very informative. We are able to understand right from the scratch what are the various categories and domains available in the IT industries and how to get equip ourselves for today's competitive world. It's really very, very informative session that we all learned a lot, and we also learned a lot of new apps that we have been seen so many days, which is very, I think it will be very useful for all category of participants who are in this session. There are few one one participant, he has a doubt, a very big doubt. I think you can also go through the chat given by Mr. Ghosh. He want to know whether it's necessary to focus on only basic languages like C, Java, or it is necessary to focus on latest programming language like Python and other things.
Yeah. So that is a very good question, Mr. Mayuk Ghosh, right? So, like I mentioned, there is no harm learning any number of languages, and there are utilization, there are organizations, there are jobs, and we have to look at it from various angles, right? And when I talked out about technologies today, I am talking about the general out there. There are implementations of C. There are implementations of various technologies that are not very drastically implemented. Like for instance, I spoke about this full stack, right? The full stack is something that is very prominent because of the capability that it gives to a engineer. But that doesn't mean that C or Java or any of those basic languages are not utilized. Roshnara Banu ma'ams and my fellow classmate, one Mr. Bhaskar, he was writing software for the pacemaker that goes into the heart, right? And I remember he was writing it on C, right? And that is even more dear to the heart, right? See, the idea is that I'm not a judge of where you know or how many organizations would be utilizing them, but there are surely those softwares that are being used. But to start with, I would say that understand the basics of programming logic and technique. I started off with C. I started off with even VB in school, and then C. I learned during my college days. But I no more sit and do coding on C. I code in Python today because I know C very well. It didn't take me much time to go into Python. It doesn't take me much time to understand any other programming language. So I would recommend that you understand the programming logic and technique and choose a technology. I already told you about Google Trends. Look it up. Find out Gartner. See if Gartner is able to tell you where you are in terms of this particular software and how effective you can get a job. Again, it's from a job getting perspective that I'm talking about. If you are not into jobs, if you want to create your own opportunities, you want to build a company, you can surely do with C also, right? Yeah. Any other questions, ma'am?
Thank you, sir, for answering the question, sir. There is no more questions, sir. I think everybody has have a clear idea of after listening to your session. So no more questions, sir. Thank you, sir. And we
Very
are
good.
very waiting eagerly to hear you tomorrow. So thank you,
Yeah.
sir.
Sure. Like I mentioned earlier, the session for tomorrow would be a little bit more technology oriented. But again, I am not here to train you on technologies, students, because your professors are much better and well equipped and your curriculum. I had a peek into your curriculum that Mrs. Roshnara Banu had sent to me a bit earlier, and it looks like you are getting yourself a dose of IoT, artificial intelligence, big data, and all that. So, technology wise, you would learn what it is out there. My focus or emphasis would be is to bridge that academia to industry gap, where you need to visualize what you learn is how it is going to be implemented in an IT company. So that is what I will try and focus for tomorrow.
Thank you, sir.
So thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, participants.